Ladies and gents, boys and girls, this is Chewing Clock right here on the SEC Unfiltered channel. Cole Thompson rocking with you. No Chris Phillips, but who needs Chris Phillips? Because when you get Trey Wallace from OutKick to come on board, it's much better. It's more content. It's better content. It's fantastic work. Chris, I know you're going to pay me later on, so guess what? I get away with this one. So Trey Wallace from OutKick is joining us right now, giving us all the great content that you could ask for. Real quickly, if you haven't already, like the video, hit the ring notification, and subscribe to the channel because we talk college football daily on the platform. Download the podcast version of the show wherever you get your podcast listening systems. If you do so over on iTunes, make sure that you leave a review, 5-star content as we continue to grow the channel that way. And make sure that you check out our great work found at secunfiltered.com. As always, we are proudly fueled by our friends over at Underdog. Download the Underdog app today. Use promo code SECU for $75 off your very first purchase. $75 off when you download the Underdog app. Use promo code SECU. Trey Wallace, my friend, how the hell are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Trying to find that middle ground between the end of football, lawsuits, everything else that goes into it, and then college basketball.
Right.
And then we got baseball. So yeah, just finding the ground, ready to get a little basketball coverage in. And at the same time, man, we got spring practice starting all around the country in college football, which is great. So yeah, man, exciting times. Never stops.
Are you interested? Going to be in Nashville in 2 weeks for the tournament?
Yeah, so I'll get over there sometime next weekend, and yeah, it'll be a full week of basketball coverage. So yeah, I'm excited. Then it'll be 3 straight weeks. I think I'm gonna go to Greenville, South Carolina, first round, just because it's kind of close.
Yeah.
And then yeah, probably Houston, then end up in Indianapolis. So it'll be fun.
When you're in Houston, just remind me. I will take you out for a nice dinner because if you were able to hang out with me for this one.
That's exactly right.
Jam-packed show, a lot of different things that go on. When you have Trey Wallace on, you got to go and hit every single corner as much as possible. We got him for 30 minutes. If you like the video, make sure that you go ahead and leave your comments, questions on in. We'll throw that into the chat as well. But Trey, you have a great background of understanding what I believe is the balance of college football, of the individual statistics that go on with deals that are happening consistently because of lawsuits. And recently we just saw Trey Wallace get the waiver passed on by. Regardless of what the college football landscape and the NCAA wants to say, he's going to be playing quarterback for Ole Miss next season, which is going to do, I think, wonders for building the repertoire for next season. Then you throw in the fact that Joey Aguilar, who followed a similar approach to Diego Pavia in the same state, does not get his waiver pass. So he is out of eligibility, which changes the way that I think that many people view Tennessee. So when you look at just the Joey Aguilar move, were you surprised by the actual decision makers that they said, hey, listen, you played at the JUCO level, you don't get that eligibility waiver passed on by? And for you, looking at Tennessee in general, how does this change the overall trajectory of the program where they hire Jim Knowles, they make some really good moves in the transfer portal, you have Faison Brandon, you have George McIntyre, 2 good quarterbacks, and Heupel's now going into his 6th season with a brand new quarterback as QB1. But this feels like with the schedule that they have, it's not far-fetched to believe that they can't make a run if they had stability at the quarterback spot.
So first off, I was surprised Joey Aguilar took his name out of the Diego Pavia lawsuit because they're expecting a decision by the judge sometime around mid-March. If anything, late March. And so bear with me here. You could have hung on with that one.
Okay.
Like you don't know what the judge is going to do. I understand that part. But here's the problem. Since he went to the state court and that case is still ongoing, no matter what the judge in the Diego Pavia lawsuit, if he rules for Pavia is not coming back to college football, folks, by the way, just trying to point that out. But it allows, it tinkers the JUCO rule. Joey Aguilar is the only player in the United States of America that cannot put his name into the list of plaintiffs, meaning he would not be able to enjoin himself. He would have to file a whole different federal lawsuit. He would have to amend his lawsuit in a Knoxville Chancery Court, and then it would have to be dealt with in Knoxville. He would not be involved in that one. So that's why, in my opinion, I was talking to a couple attorneys about it. It was an interesting decision to go with the state court. And then being in that courtroom, I just thought they botched it. I did. There was no evidence provided. And I know it's also, I want to make this point clear. It's very hard to provide evidence on what quarterbacks and other players are making across college football when you can't actually prove it.
Right.
But nobody's going to give up their data. Tennessee wasn't giving up their data. So on one hand, I'm like, okay. On the other hand, I'm like, all right, well, you have to try. Bediaco's done it. Trinidad's done it. See if you get lucky with a judge in Knoxville who just happened to be a Tennessee season ticket holder and a booster. But Chancellor Haggerty was just straight down the middle. So I give him a lot of credit for that because he could have gone 18 different ways. And so he asked a lot of questions. Now let's get to the second part. Faison Brandon, George McIntyre. It's going to be one of your quarterbacks. Not going to be Ryan Staub from Colorado. I've seen enough Ryan Staub at Colorado. I'm good. If it comes down to it and he has to play, God bless Tennessee. I think that it does give you the opportunity to bring in that fresh blood to your program. And here's also the biggest thing that I kind of look at in college football. If you've got, let's just say, $4 million wrapped up between two quarterbacks and their ass is sitting on the bench, it's useless. Like, what do you do? We are no longer in that phase of college sports where you can have that much money sitting on the bench. I think it was time for either McIntyre or Faison to play football. Now, obviously, I think with McIntyre being there a year already gives you the upper hand when it comes to the offense. But I've been told Faison, that's a smart kid. Like, he can come in there and he can figure it out. And maybe you just have to throw him to the wolves, like Bryce Underwood. And I can name 18 other quarterbacks if I wanted to. I think Tennessee, if they'd have had Joey this year, I'd have been like, okay, 9-win football team, like fighting for a playoff spot. And when I say fighting for a playoff spot, being in contention the first week of November.
Right.
Now I look at it, Cole, and I'm like, okay, I don't know what to expect from any of these two. So, really, what are you throwing it out? Like, you're not throwing the season out. What I'm saying is you're throwing expectations out because we don't know what you're going to get. Now, you talked about the Jim Knowles thing. Jim Knowles' defense, I talked to a bunch of people around college football about this. It's going to take 2 years to implement. Like, you don't just come in and implement a Jim Knowles defense in an offseason. Now, they can dumb it down a little bit, get some basics in there, run some different schemes that Tim Banks was not doing at Tennessee, and you can have success. I thought Tennessee did really good in the transfer portal on the defensive side. And so there's the ability to come in there and change things up pretty quick. Got themselves a new strength and conditioning coach as well from Indiana. So, like, I do think that there's an opportunity for Tennessee, but here's the thing. I can't sit here and say what Tennessee's offense is going to do because I don't know what the hell they got at quarterback. And so, the defense can take another step this season, maybe back to that 2024 type of year, which is the only reason they got to the playoffs, by the way. If they didn't have a running back in that defense, they're not even going to Columbus to play Ohio State.
Right.
So I think expectations for Tennessee right now with these two guys either going to be a quarterback, I think you have to put it around like 8 wins and just see where you go from there and see how they produce.
To me, what I just look at is I love the Jim Knowles hire. I thought they did a good job of bringing in very proven guys who understand the concept of his defense, which is a step in the right direction for any team that is rebuilding. But you're right. I mean, I've spoken to people around Ohio State, Oklahoma State. Year one, it's a good year. It's a fine year defensively. But it's year two that you're really kind of taking that next jump forward. So you got to go in with realistic expectations if you're Tennessee. I think that with the schedule, you bring in a Joey Aguilar, you probably that 9-win campaign is there. If you're 8-4 with Faison Brandon, and let's just say that you have Chaz Coleman showing incredible growth from year one to year two in that defense. Then you throw in what you have with Amari Campbell, and he's teaching the younger guys to get caught to speed, and what you got at the safety position. And then like Aquan Moss, who I thought was a very underrated signing from Kansas State. He comes on as a good fit. It's all about taking those pieces and then jumping into year 2 for Faison Brandon to make the move. That's to me where I think that you always were. The Joey Aguilar conversation is you go from being a team that was guaranteed to probably be 8 wins, no questions asked, to now 7-5. That's a possibility. 8-4. That's a really good year. 9-3 shows that you have the pieces in play long term. That's where I'm at when it comes to this.
I do think that the expectations, I mean, look, we're talking like a win or two. I mean, you know, if I gun to my head type of deal. Yeah. But I agree with you that they stacked up enough on the defensive side that I think it can get them through some games next year. My biggest thing is what's Heupel's Heupel kind of changed up his offense this past year. They did a little bit more pro style than I was expecting.
Yeah.
Are you doing that in 2026? You know, that's the thing that stands out to me. Get yourself, I think running game wise, I think they're going to be fine. I think offensive line wise, I think they're going to be fine. But it's all about, A, you got to protect the quarterback. B, I think that now that we look at it, there's an opportunity for Tennessee to grow. And I don't want to say, you know, we are living in an age where, and especially coming off this year, you know, it's not like Tennessee can punt on 2026. People are going to be pissed off if they only win 7 games next year.
Right.
I get it. I mean, we're in a different era. But you are setting up for 2027 on the defensive side. And if you can then at the same time bring McIntyre along, bring Faison Brandon, it's weird. It reminds me of the year that Eric Ainge and Brent Schaefer traded starting roles, and Tennessee was a decent football team. Both of them were freshmen at the time, if I'm not mistaken. It's kind of what it reminds me of here. Like I could see Faison Brandon playing football for Tennessee next year on the field in live game situations, not in mop-up duty. So now you're getting to a different edge. So I look, Heupel knows the pressure that's on him. And I think at the same time, you have to control this thing in the spring. You got to figure out who you're going. This is the true quarterback competition. And I think over the summer and getting into fall camp, we'll know which way Tennessee's kind of leaning here and going. But yeah, I mean, you know, I don't look at Tennessee right now from the offensive side of the ball, Cole, and say that's a playoff team next year. No. I think they could be top 25 in contention, but right off the top of my head, no.
And again, this is really building for 2027. If you tell me that Faison Brandon is over exceeding expectations as the number 2 quarterback prospect, automatically playing well in the SEC, you've done your part. Like, I mean, like that's just kind of where you are at this point. And I think that you're right when it comes to what are the realistic expectations. Speaking of which, I kind of need you to talk me off a ledge here. Definitely because of, you know how I feel about this one coach. John Summerall is legit. I've told you on multiple occasions, favorite hire of the entire offseason. I think it was the only A-plus hire. And it's funny to say that because of Florida's the program that we make fun of for always putting the wagon before the horse. A-plus hire, look at what they do with the resources, look at who they brought in, like the next big name. And it's like, you did this with Billy Napier, and you did this with Dan Mullen, and you did this with Jim McElwain. And it's like, yeah, but you got a loose screw when it comes to John Summerall. And I love the hires that he's made with Buster Faulkner and Brad White. And I love the fact they went and they brought in a great wide receiver in Eric Singleton to take pressure off of Dallas Wilson and Vernell Brown. And they got 2 quarterbacks in Tramel Jones and Aaron Philo, who could not be cut from the different cloth if you could make it happen, which is a good thing because it's a way to build your offense. And you have Jaden Baugh back at running back, and you kept a lot of the players that you needed to have. But Trey, I need you to talk me off of the ledge because I'm saying dangerous things right now. I'm screaming Florida's going to be 10-2. Florida's going to be a dark horse playoff team. Florida's going to be this roster that we are over exceeding expectations. And I know I'm wrong to do that, but like, why am I wrong to say that about this team?
See, I held, and I think I remember talking to you about it last year. I thought the best coach that LSU could have got was 80 miles down the road in New Orleans and John Summerall. I think Florida got themselves a hell of a football coach. And I don't want to hear the Napier narrative on this one, the G5 type of thing.
It's lazy. That's all it is.
John Summerall was a wanted man. and that is a hell of a football coach. He's also not going to have 300 staffers around the building trying to tie into every single thing that they're looking to do in the program. He set himself up on offense. He knew DJ Lagway wasn't going to be the type of quarterback he needed at Florida. I respect it. I get it. Good for DJ. Go do something else. That's fine. He got paid, blah, blah, blah. What he's brought in from the assistant coaching side, absolutely love it. Faulkner, love it. I think you could, there are endless possibilities you can do with that offense. On the defensive side, give me John Summerall and what he wants to do. You know, I was talking with somebody about this recently, and I asked kind of what was one of the first things that Summerall was doing when it comes to Florida. It's two things: special teams, strength and conditioning. To me, I was like, okay, here we go. Like, you got a ball coach. Now you're going to have to feed way through the BS for a little bit. The schedule is what it is. You can't run from the schedule next year. Pretty much the same exact one as you got this year.
Well, you can't do it any year moving forward because of it's a 9-game covered schedule.
Exactly. So it's like, okay, understand the cards that you dealt and let's roll. I think this is a better opportunity for Florida to get back in the conversation nationally. I'm not saying it's happening overnight, but what I am saying is I've seen John Summerall build some football teams. I love what he did at Troy. And then you go do it down at Tulane, and now you have the opportunity at Florida. And I think that, you know, when you look at the Gators overall, they got the resources to win. I just think it was mismanaged over the last 3 to 4 years under Billy Napier. And I think now that, you know, like you were talking about, you run through the players that you bring in, you run through the staff that you bring in. And I think there's now the groundwork. It's been laid. Okay. Now let's see what they do going into spring, summertime, get things rolling. First year guy in the SEC, but he ain't dumb to the SEC. He knows this area. He knows how to recruit. He knows how to handle the portal. He can deal with NIL. Florida's got money. Okay. I mean, DJ had to pay back I'm not going to call it a loan, but DJ had to pay back a little bit just to be able to get out of the contract. So I think that looking at it overall, I was trying to be very careful with my words here because I didn't want to get in trouble with somebody. But looking at Florida, they had the ability to go out and spend, and then at the same time, they had what I have seen them add through the portal. To me, stands out the most. And then you know what? Also, what he can do in the state of Florida when it comes to recruiting.
Yeah.
He's built up relationships. Summerall has in the state of Louisiana. He's got them in the state of Alabama. You're checking off the boxes here. And I think that this could be a successful season for Florida. I'm not talking CFP championship. I'm talking building that foundation, whereas in year 2, you're ready to roll and you add a couple more pieces and then, okay, now let's go try to make the college football playoff.
Look, you have a guy in Jaden Baugh who last season, I remember how many times I screamed at the television, why is 13 not on the field? Why is he not seeing more carries? And you're bringing in an offensive-minded guy that was able to get really quality play the last 4 years at Georgia and Georgia Tech out of the running back position. Like, they're going to run him into the ground, and you want to know what? I'm fine with that. Because that's what needs to happen at a place like Florida. And you look at the laundry list of names of running backs that we've seen come out of Gainesville that make it in the NFL, 90% of the time, the ones that are going to transition to the league with ease are the ones that you actually see have that pile drive mentality. And, like, for me, when it came to Florida, Trey, my big thing wasn't that they went out, they brought in a bunch of guys. Like, yeah, we talk about the names that they did bring in. Eric Singleton, Aaron Philo, Luke Harping at tight end. I look at the names that they didn't lose. And I think that's a big transition because of it says, in a day and age where the transfer portal is so potent and Cam Coleman's getting paid a bill to go elsewhere. And you're talking about offensive linemen and like a guy like Damon Wilson, who's out of Missouri and says, you know what, I'm going to go test the market because why not? You're not losing a Jaden Woods. You're not losing a Jaden Baugh. You're not losing a Dallas Wilson. You're not losing a Vernell Brown. You're not losing a Miles Graham. You're not losing a Dijon Johnson. You're not taking away guys who were actually really good last season for a team. And that gets to be your foundation. If a coach is able to convince these guys to stick around, either A, he knows that the value of what their positioning is not approachable to replace in the market. And B, you're a brand new coach coming on in and saying, this is the way we do things here. And they're all buying into the assignment.
Correct.
I mean, to me, that says volume of what you have cut for your chop. And by the way, the whole point of where I stand against Billy Napier comments, it's not even lazy. Billy Napier would never be seen taking photos with a live alligator for 15 minutes. He would be scared out of his freaking mind. And meanwhile, you got an alligator hissing at Summerall, and he's clapping back. Like, that dude has a screw that's loose in his head that absolutely is necessary to win in the place.
He's all in on the recruiting aspect of it, and he's all in on the NIL, and he's all in on what he has to do to be able to lay the foundation in Florida to be able to win. And you know what else, too? He's okay kissing a few asses when it comes to the boosters. Boosters don't run the program, okay? But he understands the assignment. And that's why I think financially Florida's going to have success. Now, can that translate to the field? We're going to find out. But I do think that they've built up enough. And here's the other thing, too, for the people out there. Once Lane Kiffin started playing games with Florida and Florida figured that out, they moved on pretty quick from Summerall.
Yeah.
Like it was, I'm sorry, from Kiffin and went to Summerall. Because two things. They knew Auburn was going after him and they knew Ole Miss was going after him. So you had to move on somebody pretty quick. And so once that Florida set their eyes on it, they knew it. And they also had a plan. And to me, that's what stands out the most. They had a plan on how they were going to do this. Not to say Ole Miss and Auburn didn't have a plan. I'm just saying they identified their guy and went after him. Now let's see what he can do with, bringing his guys in, handling the transfer portal, getting his quarterback, and let's see if they can put it together. I like Florida. I do. I wanted to like Florida under Napier, but there were just certain things about that program under Napier that I couldn't get on board with. Right. But with John Summerall, it seems like he's got his bleak together to be able to go handle the job. Let's see.
Listen, we only got you for like 10 more minutes, so I got to rapid fire through these things because of when we have Trey Wallace on. I mean, it's a Rolodex of knowledge and an encyclopedia of content that you got to have. You're a 251 area code dude, so you're going to know this one very well. Yeah. Auburn, because of that was where John Summerall I thought was going to land, and if it wasn't there, I thought Ole Miss had him locked up. Like I thought that was a done deal, and then Florida out of the wazoo just goes, you know what, we're going to pull the trigger. So they pivot and they go to Alex Golesh, who was getting looked at by Arkansas, was getting looked at by a couple of other schools. Alex Golesh is bringing in his offense. Yeah. Number one, it's an updated offense that is night and day different from what you have with Hugh Freeze that ultimately led to the demise of the program. You're bringing in a quarterback in Byron Brown, who you and I both have heard from many people in the SEC, especially from Auburn. Why the hell is he not ranked among the top 10 quarterbacks? He's the only returning quarterback in college football with 3,000 passing yards, 1,000 rushing yards. I like the plan in motion for Auburn. And I really love that they brought in Bryson Washington from Baylor. I thought that was a very underrated move. You kept a lot of the same defensive pieces in line. Xavier Atkins is back for another year. But you and I both know Auburn. And you and I both know what the expectation is at Auburn. And we both know what Yellowwood wants. How quickly is this going to work? Because if there's a part of me that says you're bringing in a guy that is able to bring an offense that is explosive, sporadic. It's going to be fun. But there's a lot of pieces I still think that are missing to where you're going to wonder, what is this team?
That's why I think this is going to, and Lord have mercy, Auburn fans, don't go crazy when I say this. I think it's going to look like Tennessee in their first year. Okay. When it comes, and I say that because, and just speaking honestly here, Tennessee hasn't been the same since Alex Golesh left offensively. Yeah. Offensively, I think a lot of Tennessee fans would even agree with that. Now, I'm not saying he's going to go have this tremendous amount of success early on at Auburn, but one thing he has done in talking with folks, I was down in Mobile recently. I talked to a couple board of trustee members. He separated himself. He's saying, okay, you can contribute, you can give me money for NIL, but you ain't calling shots. You're not going to tell me what to do with the money. You're not going to tell me who to go get. You're going to let me handle it, and you're going to trust me. Alex was that type of guy. He was that type of guy at USF. I give him a lot of credit. He went down there, turned that program around. I knew where they were before, but kind of took it to and he also had a really good staff. I loved Andrew Warsaw that he brought with him. He was handling a lot of different personnel decisions. I think Auburn can find success, but you have to realize or understand what success means at Auburn right now. And to me, next year, that would be 8 wins. Go out and win 8 games. Be in contention. Don't have fans turning the channel in the fourth quarter. Don't let Kentucky come into Jordan-Hare and beat you. Those type of situations. I love Byron at quarterback. I think he could be special in the SEC. I think Auburn has struck out so many times at quarterback over the last 4 years.
We can go back 6 years if need be, if you really want to.
If you really wanted to. And another thing too, if Deuce Knight was going to be the guy at Auburn, he'd still be at Auburn. If Auburn thought he could be the guy, right? In my opinion, different offense with Pete Golding and what they're doing at Ole Miss. So I feel like Alex Golesh has a handle of this. And the biggest thing that stands out to me above all, he's not coming to the SEC with unknown expectations. He knows the SEC. He was sitting there with Josh for two and a half years. He knows what it takes to jump into a job for the first time in the Southeastern Conference. To me, that's what stands out the most. He's seen the stuff behind the scenes. He understands what he has to do with his staff. And I think it was a great learning experience for what he had with Heupel in the quarterback situation. Everybody remembers the first year with Heupel at quarterback. I mean, you're flipping between Joe Milton and the Nooker, So I think it's very beneficial for him, brother, that he's had the opportunity to experience his conference, even if it's at the offensive coordinator level, so he knows what he's getting. And by the way, a lot of the staff that he had at USF that is now coming with at Auburn, they were at Tennessee.
Right.
They have SEC experience as well. So blending that all together to me is the main thing for them. And again, the expectations. Auburn fans, you got to build this thing back up. The biggest thing that Auburn did not take advantage of was when Alabama was down over the last 2 years with Kalen DeBoer, not being able to take advantage of that situation with Nick Saban retiring. I think now you put yourself in a different spot where I don't know if Alex Golesh is going to have success, but I know he's doing enough on the plains right now for that opportunity to be there. And I think that's what excites me for what he can do in the Southeastern Conference.
I'll get you out of here on this because I know you got to run, but there's a big conversation about Shane Beamer. And part of the thing with Shane Beamer, here's the thing, man. I'm okay with the hire. I actually think that he is facing a lot of pressure because of the expectations he set for himself. When he opened his mouth and said, this time next year, we're going to be a playoff team. That to me set a clock that said, if you are not at least 9-3, you are going to be shown the door. And is that fair for a program like South Carolina that constantly has been more so a 7-5 franchise and they've been a 9-3? Absolutely not. But they go out and they bring in Carius Peak, best tackle on the market. Now he's out in all of spring and he's probably going to miss the beginning of next season. They bring back Lenore Sellers. They bring back Nick Harbor. They bring back Dylan Stewart. A part of me just says you cannot waste a talent like those two and what the potential is and live to tell the tale. So is it literally a playoff or bust for Shane Beamer this year? Or is it at least, look, we have a season-ending injury to Sellers. Things go a little bit south. We still win 8-4. We're okay.
8. I'll put it to you like I put it earlier. He's got to be in contention for the playoff first week in November, or he's out of a job.
So it's that bad at that point.
And guys, and I said the same thing about Jimbo years ago. I said if Jimbo was not in contention to Texas A&M that final year in the month of November, he was asked to be fired. He was fired. I'm not saying it would get that drastic, but what I am saying is you're losing a lot of patience in Columbia right now. And what they have spent NIL-wise, they got the talent. They have the talent. Things just went south last year for South Carolina. This was a team 2 years ago that was fighting for a playoff spot. So they had the ability. I remember sitting there in spring practice, I think it was Shane's second year there. It was Lenore's first spring practice ever. And this young freshman kid with big old goggle glasses on. And I'm sitting there and I looked at Shane and I was, we were off to the side and I said, okay, tell me about this kid. He just looked at me and said he's going to be special. Lenore Sellers has that opportunity.
Sure.
Got to figure out the offensive line. I think defensive, they're going to be fine. I think they have weapons. They got weapons. Special teams, they got weapons. Wide receiver, they got weapons. Now you have to put it all together. I look at last year and I give Shane the benefit of the doubt for last season. Okay. Things just went south quick. I think now you have the opportunity to say, okay, that was my mulligan. Now let's put it together for 2026. I'm not saying they're going to be a national title contender, but what I am saying is what they're bringing back and the amount of money that they've spent on this team should give South Carolina fans hope that last year was just kind of one of those off seasons. Let's put it back together for 26 and let's make a run. Let's see what happens. But, you spend that amount of money, go make something happen. And if he doesn't, Shane Beamer's not oblivious to this. He understands that it could be his last season in Columbia. So it is what it is with South Carolina. I have faith in them. I have faith in Lenore Sellers because I think he can be a really good quarterback. He's shown me at times he can be. Let's just see if they can put it all together now and maybe, not have the 19 different injuries that they had last season.
You get 30 minutes with Trey Wallace. You get an entire podcast, and we still have 30 more minutes to go. Trey Wallace from OutKick is our kind guest. He was kind enough to join us for the last 30 minutes. Trey, when you come to Houston, I'm taking you to dinner. Just keep me in the loop.
Oh, you trust me. It's going on the company. It's going on the company dime. So I look forward to it, brother.
All right, you take care, man. Go enjoy yourself for the rest of the day.
Thank you, buddy.
Appreciate you having me. Man. I promise you guys, if you get an opportunity to ever listen to Trey Wallace just spit out random facts for a good 45 minutes, you won't check your phone. You won't have to worry about what's going on Twitter. You'll be so enthralled in just the Rolodex of information he has. That's why we have him on today. Like the video, hit the ring notification, subscribe to the channel. We're not done. We are not. I still have a couple more points I want to bring on up for today's show. But real quickly, if you haven't already figured out, we are brought to you by our friends over at Underdog. From fast breaks to buzzer beaters, block points, now is the time to sign up, and Underdog is the place to get in on all the action, especially with March Madness around the corner. Playing Underdog is easy. Just pick whether your favorite player is going to go higher or lower on points, rebounds, steals, and much, much more. Whatever you want to place your bets on, especially with the SEC tournament going on in Nashville, the Big 12 tournament going on, whatever it is, sign up, get your picks right. You can win up to 5,000 times in your cash. It's very simple. Just download the Underdog app today. Use promo code SECU. When you sign up and win your first $5 bet, you're going to get 75 bonus bets simply by winning on the dotted line. Make picks, win money. Sign up today at Underdog. Download the app. Underdog, make picks, win money. Must be 18 or 19 plus in Alabama, Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Arizona, Massachusetts, and Virginia. Present in the state where Underdog Fantasy operates. See terms apply. Concern with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER, reset, or call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. 1-800-639-8737 or text NEXT STEP to 53342NY. Call the 247-HOPE hotline at 1-8778-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Okay. Couple more points I want to bring up on today's show. Had a couple of rundowns that we want to get to, but Trey, we weren't able to get that done. I'm going to go ahead and name real fast my 3 favorite Underdog players that were in the transfer portal that did not get enough love after we talk real quickly about the pressure rate. So something that I want to get to with Trey was talking about how there is a giant difference, I think, from Shane Beamer facing pressure this year to Alabama's Kalen DeBoer and Steve Sarkisian from Texas. So Alabama and Texas are 2 programs that many times you believe should be considered a favorite to compete for the national title. While Alabama hasn't done that in 2 years underneath Kalen DeBoer, they made the playoffs. That's like the bare minimum expectation when you sign on up to be the head coach down in Tuscaloosa. And Texas missed the playoffs last year after going 9-3. You can argue the semantics about what happened. They played Ohio State. Should they not have played Ohio State? Don't lose the Florida game. It's the exact same argument you have here. Go 10-2, you're in the playoffs. Regardless, there is a fine line about their pressure versus Shane Beamer's pressure. See, Shane Beamer, in my opinion, has yet to truly embrace the full-on pageantry of South Carolina. And whether or not I think it's fair, South Carolina fans do expect to be considered one of the premier teams in the SEC. And they expect to be able to retain talent in the state of South Carolina, which has been a hotbed for premier names to go to the NFL. They expect to continuously see first-round picks be representing at Willie B on Saturdays. They expect to see their team be competitive alongside the Auburns of the world, the Ole Miss of the world, and certainly above the Vanderbilts, Missouris, and the Arkansas. That really has been the case. So far, through 5 seasons, you have a 1 9-win campaign, and then you have an 8-5 campaign. You have a 6-7 campaign, a 4-8 campaign, and a 5-7 campaign. So 5 years of work. You have been underwhelming for 3 and somewhat progressive for 2. And when you have a Lenore Sellers and when you have a Nick Harbor and when you have a Dylan Stewart on the roster and you have constant turnover at the offensive coordinator position, you have to ask yourself, who's left to blame? Right now, you can't go after the quarterback. You can't go after the offensive coordinator. You can go after the offensive line coach and Randy Clements if so be it. But at the same time, really, you're the one who's making the hire as a head coach. So it goes back to Shane Beamer. If Shane Beamer, who said this past offseason, we expect to be sitting here this time next year, watching our name appear as one of the 12 teams in the college football playoff format. With a 12-team format, by the way, that also is out of the mix. We expect to be a playoff team. If you open Pandora's box like that, you are going to have the War Chicken faithful going on the message boards, demanding Jeremiah Donati, the new athletic director, to make changes if things do not go according to plan. Especially when you do have talent at wide receiver, especially when you have talent in the transfer portal on the defensive side, especially when you have a player built like a Lenore Sellers and a Dylan Stewart headline your team. So ultimately, what you got to look at is say, you're facing pressure because of you've created the pressure for you. When you bring in this type of talent, it can't be wasted by going to the Rely Quest Bowl or the Cheez Bowl or the Pop-Tarts Bowl if you were ever invited there, which I believe is the best bowl game out there. But regardless, that's not what you sign up for when you play at South Carolina. And remind yourself, when guys like Damon Wilson and Cam Coleman were getting paid a pretty penny to go into the open market, they weren't alone. Dylan Stewart probably got approached by Miami or Ohio State or multiple other schools and said, what will it cost for you to leave Columbia and come join us in Ann Arbor or Columbus or Norman for that matter? And he said, no, I'm going to stick around because the athletic department said, here you go. Here's an NIL check that will guarantee that you're happy and content where you are. And the same thing goes for Lenore Sellers, and the same thing probably goes for Nick Harbor. The difference between them and Steve Sarkisian and Kalen DeBoer is those two are just expected to be playoff teams. They spend money in the offseason. They were able to go ahead and recruit at a high-end level. They're not worried about finishing 16th in recruiting because they're always going to be in the top 10. They're always going to be in the top 15 when it comes to transfer portal rankings, and they can pick and choose whoever the hell they want. They did this past offseason. Look at the names that Texas brought in. Raleek Brown and Hollywood Smothers. You got one damn good running back, and you said, you know what, 2 for the price of 1, we'll take that deal 10 times out of 10. And now you've upgraded your running back position. You still kept Ryan Wingo, really quality wide receiver number 2, and then mostly damn good wide receiver number 3. You upgraded by bringing in a Cam Coleman. And now you have a cast of characters surrounding Arch Manning, who did impress down the stretch, arguably was the reason why Texas finished the year 10-3. And you're expected to now compete alongside Georgia and LSU and Alabama for an SEC conference title. And you're supposed to be in the playoff. When you spend this type of money, the expectation is we get to see the fruits of our labor continuously improve. That doesn't mean going to the playoff. That doesn't even mean winning a playoff game. That means being able to compete for a national title. And Alabama, in the same breath, didn't go after as many elite players. Like Ty Hayward, I think is going to be a really good offensive lineman. They bring in the interior guard from Michigan as well. They also go bring in Noah Rogers. I think that was a very underrated find. Look at his numbers at NC State the last 2 years. Pairing him alongside with Ryan Williams and Rico Scott and Latsier Brooks, it'll be a good fit. But at some point, you got to ask yourself and say, well, these are Kalen DeBoer's players. This is now Kalen DeBoer's roster. Alabama is going to be 3 years removed from Nick Saban and 3 years entering an era where you were supposed to bring in an offensive identity that was going to be catapulted to new heights that would be the backbone of your team. And it hasn't gotten there yet. Yeah, you got a young quarterback in Keelan Russell or Austin Mack, another really good quarterback battle that we get to watch this offseason. But you should feel good about everything around it to where, just once again, 10-2 should be the bare minimum college football playoff bound or bust. Neither one of those coaches, I think, will be fired next offseason. Like, if they end up going 9-3 and missing the college football playoff, and meanwhile you have South Carolina in the college football postseason conversation, I don't think Steve Sarkisian is leaving. I don't think that Kalen DeBoer will be shown the door. In today's day and age, especially where NIL is very potent and how much of revenue distribution is factored on in, you better be sure that you are landing a massive upgrade at head coach if you're going to pull the trigger. You just are. So I don't think either guy is going to be shown the door or being left go. But it is going to put pressure on them going into 2027 to deliver results, and more so than what you have going into 2026. If Alabama were to make it to the college football playoff and once again lose in the divisional round or the second round, Rose Bowl, Fiesta Bowl, whatever it is this year, Alabama fans would be upset because it's another year removed from competing for the national title. It just is. But at the same time, I'm not thinking that they're going to be like immediately saying Kalen DeBoer is not the guy. You can't. Because what if it was another factor of the inability to run the football, or the inability to have great pass protection, or too many drops at the wide receiver, or your pass rush wasn't as potent? Little things like that can go a long way. And the same thing I think goes for Texas. The pressure going into 2027, for sure, there will. But if you make the college football playoff, you did your job for the most part. You didn't finish the job, but you at least got to that next stage. Texas, for me, has got to be better because of Steve Sarkisian's the play caller. And we're living in a day and age where right now, Mike McDonald made history because he was the first defensive play caller, I think in like 10 years, to win a Super Bowl while running the show. That would be what the equivalent is of Steve Sarkisian winning a national title at Texas. Both teams, I think, could. But to say that they're all in the same category, Steve Sarkisian, Shane Beamer, Kalen DeBoer, I think it's malpractice. I really do. There's a clear indication that one expectation is drastically different than the other. All right. Now let's talk about one more team, Oklahoma. For me, I got this question asked to me last week. Oklahoma, can they end up being a college football playoff team next year? The answer should be yes. It just should. Now, I understand that we got Sandman in the comments and a couple of other people who are going to say, no, it's Oklahoma. It's that trailer park content. It should be. But let me ask you guys something. What was the big selling point looking at Oklahoma last season? They got John Matera quarterback. Well, John Matera quarterback for the first couple games was really good. He was very good. In fact, for my money, he beat Auburn. He beat Michigan. He single-handedly beat Michigan. And they proceeded to end up starting off the year 5-0. Then came Red River, bad performance. And then you started to notice that the hand injury was an issue. Now, I'm not going to blame everything on the hand injury. I'm not. Partially because I don't think that it was simply the hand injury. I thought you went up against quality defenses like Alabama, like Ole Miss, like LSU to a certain degree, and it led to a lot of turnovers and a lot of miscommunications and bad outlooks. I'm going to play that into the factor as well. So the defenses that you went up against and the schedule that you had, it showed the limitations of a John Matera in an SEC style of play, which ultimately led to the demise of where you went for the rest of the season, how you were limited. Now, the hand injury also factored into the completion percentage, the touchdown to interception ratio, all of that. But let me ask you, going into this season, how much better do you feel about the offense? Because if John Matera is able to stay healthy, full offseason of going through the workouts, dealing with the overall identity of running, again, your offense underneath Ben Arbuckle, who didn't lead this offseason, and you feel better about the wide receiver position because you bring in Parker Livingston, you bring in a couple of underrated names. Isaiah Satang is back for another year. You upgrade, in my opinion, at tight end, or at least bring in some tight ends, Rocky Beers being one, Hayden Hansen being another. Offensive line, it can't be worse from last season, right? Like, it's got to at least somewhat improve. I'm not saying to a degree of where it is an all-American unit of years past, what we're so accustomed to seeing in a place like Oklahoma, but it can at least be better, right? Then who's to say that you can't at least be in the same conversation? Because your defense is going to lose some pieces, but it's not losing as much as people want to make it out to be. You still have both of the Bowens. You still have David Stone. You still have a good pass rush. You still have some solid linebacker play. Overall, the identity is still there. Oh, and you didn't lose the play caller. Because much like Steve Sarkisian down in Austin and Norman, you got a guy in Venables who last season believed, if I'm going to be fired, I'm going to go down with the ship. I'm going to go down with my identity. My team is going to go down with my vision. That was the reason you made the playoff last season. You got to be able to run the football better. Again, much like Alabama, not being able to average anything less than 3.3 yards a play is inexcusable. It's going to be the downfall of you. But last year, people said you would be left out of the playoff and you go 9-3 or 8-4 because your schedule would force you to. And then you proceeded to go 10-2. You beat Alabama on the road. You go into Knoxville. You beat Tennessee, even with lackluster quarterback play. And because of what your defense delivered, you were able to pile drive and make the college football playoff and even host a playoff game. So look at the schedule this season. Once again, you got Red River. once again, you have to face off against a team in Michigan, this time going to the Big House, and you get Georgia early on in the year. But then you get Kentucky, at Mississippi State, South Carolina, Florida, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, and Missouri. I would say the only other game that I would guarantee to be a loss right now would probably be Texas. And that's even hard to say because of it's Red River. So Red River is the one game of the year where usually you'll see the team that ends up going to the college football playoff having a bad day at the office. That's the case. Texas a few years ago watched as Dylan Gabriel led a game-sealing drive and pushed ahead to guarantee their team was in the end zone. And yet Texas won the Big 12 and went to the college football playoff and was a play away from going to a national championship. So even still, the only game that you would say is Georgia. So if your defense delivers and your offense is still built together and you still have stability when it comes to the rushing attack and you're able to get anything moving on the ground and you're able to have a better version of John Mateer in the passing game, who's to say that you can't at least be proactively progressive in terms of the offensive identity? I'm not saying that you have to be top 30 in any conversation, but if you can be top 50 running the football, top 50 in third down conversions, top 50 in red zone efficiency. Last season, you already played a schedule of a murderer's row, and you still made the playoffs. This year, you take out Tennessee, you take out Alabama, you insert Texas A&M and Georgia, but basically, it's almost like the exact same thing that you had from a season ago. You don't know what Florida is going to be, and let's be transparent. As of right now, we're banking on what we think Ole Miss can be with Trey Wallace returning, with Kewan Lacey in the backfield. We don't know for a fact that they're going to end up living up to expectations. We don't. They may end up being the most disappointing team in college football next year. I'm not ready to say that Oklahoma is guaranteed to be a college football playoff team. What I will say is I think that Oklahoma is flying under the radar in terms of the national perspective of what we have them. If John Mateer can meet the expectations underneath Ben Arbuckle's offense, if the offensive line can be as proactive and improve from a season ago, and if the defense is still the same defense that we're accustomed to seeing underneath Brent Venables, you're in a good spot. You're not in a terrible spot, to say the least. I think that you can at least bank on a 9-win season being proactive. 9 wins probably is not going to get you to the playoff. I just don't see it in today's day and age. And after getting 5 teams in from the SEC a season ago, the college football playoff committee is probably going to limit you to 4. 4 teams would probably be where you want to be going into next season in terms of representation for the postseason. 9 is probably not enough. 9 is probably better than what a lot of people would expect because of how much you are losing defensively and what you are having to replace on the terms of the offensive identity. And what also you're expecting from a guy like John Mateer to take the next jump forward. Every conversation, I still think very much is up for grabs. Let's get to the comments section before we get on out of here. Overachieving from Oklahoma. Yep, see, I already knew what this was. What are your thoughts on Arkansas and their potential this year? I think Arkansas will be a solid team. And by solid, what I mean is they will meet expectations of being able to have an identity put in place. I'm not looking at them wins and losses total. I'm just not. And part of the reason I'm not doing that is because I think it's unfair for a coach like Ryan Silverfield, who's given a bad hand, doesn't have a lot of resources in NIL, is basically having to rebuild a roster that went 2-10 a season ago and still has to face a murderer's row of what is competition. Like every single year, the one team that I constantly feel bad for is Arkansas because they're never going to get the schedule to where you just kind of take a giant exhale, relax, and believe, yeah, they can get to 9 wins with a mediocre roster. Like there are teams out there this past season that probably would have gone 8-4 or 7-5 if they would have been challenged a bit more, but they didn't. And because of that, they were able to go ahead and punch their ticket to the college football playoff. Arkansas is never going to get that beneficiary. They just aren't. So if they end up going 4-8, but they're 4-8 and they're really competitive in a lot of games, it's a better step in the right direction than what Jeff Levy had his first season, or what you've seen from teams like Auburn in the past, or what you've seen from teams like Vanderbilt when Clark Lake got the job in there. And that's more so what I'm looking at. They have an identity. They have a culture put in motion. They believe that they're a pretty solid team. Cam Coleman with a legitimate quarterback will be scary. Yeah, I think so. I honestly think that that's one of the big selling points for me moving forward when it comes to why believing in Texas as a national title contender. Cam Coleman is going into an offense that constantly has been able to punch out better wide receivers because that they fit the criteria. Think about it for a second. You go ahead and AD Mitchell, you make the college football playoff, and you're a throw away from going to the national championship. You added Matthew Golden. You're nearly in the national championship. You go to the SEC championship year 1, And a big time reason why you're competitive in the SEC year one is because of your passing attack with the kid from Houston. So there's a proven concept of wide receivers just panning on out whenever they join forces with Steve Sarkisian. I don't know what it is that they're putting in the water down on the 40 acres, but every single time it seems to work. And from a talent perspective, just simply from a talent mindset, the best wide receiver in the SEC is going to be Cam Coleman. And I have felt that way for probably the last 2 years. From a talent mindset, 6'3", 220 pounds, is able to make contested catches 50-50, more so look like 80-20. Like, that's what Cam Coleman is. He's not a good route runner. He's very limited in his overall route concept tree, and that's something that I think is going to be a big emphasis throughout spring football. But you can at least think that right now, you throw in having the ability to work alongside a guy like Steve Sarkisian, who's been able to master offensive mindsets, you'll be in a pretty good spot. I hope that you're able to see the first 1,000-yard campaign for a wide receiver in his magnitude because of, let's be real, he's underachieved his last 2 seasons on the Plains. But now you got to ask yourself, is that because of quarterback concept, or is that more so because of what you didn't have in terms of a quarterback? Or is that limited to your overall identity? There'll be a lot of things that you got to look at in that standpoint that they could really make or break the difference. Before we get on out of here, my 3 players that I want to focus in on that I think are flying under the radar in terms of national praise in the transfer portal. Could be because of fit, could be because of their future role. It could just be because of I like who they are. And I narrowed it down to 3 because of I think that there is a reason to believe that there are more, but I don't want to be here for like 30 minutes. So number 1 for me is Trey Wilson at LSU. Trey Wilson, from a talent perspective, has the ability to be a top 10 wide receiver in the SEC. Part of the reason he has it is because of injury. Injuries have derailed his tenure during his time in Florida. And then the bad concept when it came to fitting in the offensive personnel, Billy Napier kind of having an always unknownness when it came to the play calling, there was going to be some limitations. Well, now you're going from Billy Napier as your play caller to Charlie Wise Jr. and Lane Kiffin. Now, I don't know if you know this as well as I do, but Charlie Wise Jr. and Lane Kiffin seem to speak wide receiver, and they really seem to speak transfer portal wide receiver. They constantly are hitting at that position more often than not. Like, you look at the guys that would come on in from Louisiana Tech or Purdue or insert Chattanooga, Tennessee from here, and, oh, look at that. Wide receiver 1 ends up being 600 receiving yards, 9 touchdowns. J.C. Brown is the wide receiver that most people are focused in on, and Winston Watkins are the 2 because of what their magnitude is. I think J.C. Brown's going to be a stud. If you watch the tape from Kansas State, really good shifty playmaker that can work on the outside, take 16-yard comeback routes to the house for 60 yards. And Winston Watkins was a stud at Ole Miss. But I want people to remember the name Trey Wilson or Eugene Wilson, whatever you want to call him. He is going to find his way into the end zone more often than not, and he will be a terror, I think, for LSU. You are going to figure out that a guy of his magnitude is going to be a major factor, I think, for the offensive personnel and concepts of what they want to run at a place like LSU. And by the way, do not be shocked to see him end up being the leading receiver in a lot of these categories. Number 2 is Bryson Washington. I kind of mentioned him with Trey not too long ago. Bryson Washington played against Auburn last season, and Auburn did a damn good job of bottling him up. In fact, for the most part, it was one of his worst games last season for Baylor. I think he had like 54 rushing yards. Do you know that the 2 years combined at Baylor, he had 18 rushing touchdowns, 2 more receiving touchdowns, and over 2,000 yards? He's a damn good player. Part of the reason why he didn't work was because they were down so many times last season that Sawyer Robertson basically had to play hero ball to guide them to a 5-7 finish. Baylor didn't utilize Bryson Washington the way that they probably should have because they were always playing from behind. And when you do that, you got to go ahead and trust that your passing attack is going to bail you out of trouble. You're pairing him alongside with a really solid running back system already in place down at Auburn. Like, you realize that. Like, Auburn, yeah, they're losing Amari Daniels, which was a big-time deal, but they're not losing Jeremiah Cobb, who had almost 1,000 yards last season. This is going to be a very run-oriented offense. Like, so many people are going to be focused in on, Josh Heupel comes on in with quarterback play and the ability to go vertical. Any single time that you watch an offense of Josh Heupel, or in this case, Alex Golish, the baseline is always running the football. Like, they all come from the same background. Like, I understand that, what Kiffin runs is completely different than what Heupel runs is completely different than what Golesh runs. But you got to remind yourself that all of them trust their rushing attacks. Go look at the numbers of Tennessee, USF, and Ole Miss the last 3 years. They're top 20 in running the football. And usually it's because they have a secondary runner that they can trust. Last season at Tennessee, you had Deshaun Bishop. You also had Peyton Lewis. You also had Star Thomas. So you had guys that you knew were going to be able to tote the rock as much as possible. Look at what you had last season at USF. Look at what you had last season when it came to Ole Miss. Kevon Lacey was the damn good, easy RB1 that killed it offensively. You also had a Logan Diggs compliment that was a really good change of pace runner. So even if Bryson Washington isn't a dude that we're talking about finishing with, I don't know, we'll go with like 800 rushing yards and 9 touchdowns. That doesn't mean he's a bad player. It just means that he is going to be a dude that you probably won't see be the bell cow. Doesn't mean he can't be a difference maker, a changing of pace, or better yet, there could be some games where Jeremiah Cobb is being stuffed at the line of scrimmage. He's only getting 2 yards of playing. And you see Alex Golesh go, you know what? Let's go give the Baylor kid a shot. And he ends up rushing for 165 yards, 3 touchdowns. And that's a reason why you believe Auburn has turned the corner offensively. So I think that Bryson Washington needs to be brought up more. And the last one is Qua Moss. He's the addition that came on in from Kansas State. Good safety product last season. Finished with 2 interceptions, 1 pass breakup, 41 total tackles. 41 total tackles. First year's a starter. Also, I think if I'm not mistaken, was limited at times because of injury, so we didn't play a full season. Well, now he's going to Jim Knowles' defense out in Tennessee. Now, Tennessee, I don't know how many of you are paying attention and love to go ahead and watch film the way that I do, especially when it comes to the defensive side of things. Tennessee's going to run a 3-safety tandem next season. So Tennessee is now going to have the usage of a 6 defensive backfield. And the reason that's important is veteran play is basically going to make or break this team on the defensive side. And that's where Qua Moss can kind of come on in and set the tone for your secondary. I really think that you're going to pair him alongside with what you got currently in Deshaun Lane, in TJ Metcalf. He can play in the nickel. He may end up being a really good replacement for what you lost in Colton Hood. And maybe that's enough to believe, listen, our defense is not going to be elite like it should be in 2027, but we got a good foundation in place. Guy had 2 interceptions a year ago, fitting inside of a Manhattan, Kansas defense. Imagine what he can do with a defensive mind like Jim Knowles running the show. He was one that just wasn't brought up enough. And the one thing that I will say is that I've watched Jim Knowles take safety play, whether it be in Happy Valley, whether it be in Columbus, whether it be in Stillwater, and they've been able to get really solid, easy transition play out of it. Caleb Downs had a really good season 2 years ago. In fact, it was the big-time reason why you won the national title at Ohio State. And then you had like Colby Harvell-Peel. A lot of people forget that name. Solid all Big 12 campaign underneath Jim Knowles when he was out in Polk Stadium. I think Qua Moss can be that dude. Maybe line him up at safety, maybe line him up in the nickel. You play the big star. It's allowing you to be able to be effective against tight ends, slot receivers, running backs out of the backfield. That's just a dude that I look at and say there's a reason why his specific name was brought up in conversations by Jim Knowles when he entered the transfer portal. And I think that might be good enough to where you're looking back and saying, maybe he wasn't the best player on the defense, but he damn sure was one that you got to at least pay attention to. So those are 3 players that I think just deserve a little bit more attention. Trey Wilson down at LSU, Bryson Washington down at Auburn, Qua Moss over at Tennessee. I'm going to be shocked if by the time that we get to next season, years come to a close, looking back and we're saying, okay, who were the guys that ended up breaking on out? At least 2 of them, I think, will be fixtures for their team and a big reason why they were able to turn the corner and end up making a big-time name. All right, that does it for us here, Chewing Clock. We will be back on Wednesday. Chris Phillips will be here. I will be here. We'll be breaking down 2 more teams, what defines a winning season. More news coming on out around the world of college football, coaching rankings, program rankings, all that other stuff. But if you haven't already, like the video, hit the ring notification, subscribe to the channel because we talk SEC football daily. We're about ready to enter spring football. So again, the sport never sleeps. We do this for fun. We constantly are continuing to grow. We love for you to be a part of it. And by the way, if you haven't already, go on over to iTunes, download the podcast version of the show. While you're there, leave a review on the Chewing Clock page. 5 stars. I will go ahead, send me a screenshot at Mr. Cole Thompson on Twitter. I will sell you a couple bucks. just simply because we want to continue to see the program grow. We will be back on a Wednesday. Do not miss that episode. Special thanks to Trey Wallace for joining us today. I'm Cole Thompson. We will see you soon. Have a good start to your week. And remember, college football never sleeps. That's why you should never stop watching Chewing Clock right here on SEC Unfiltered. Bye.